Alright, VIM motions part 2 is the video, finally making it. So if you haven't watched already made a video before on some of the basic motions in VIM that will pretty much that you'll ever really need. In this video, I'm gonna go over some more stuff in VIM that will definitely help you code a lot faster. So a lot of motions that are very useful still. And just don't mind my guy over here. He's shit. Okay, and I'm just edit this in to the beginning because there's a lot of things in VIM, a lot of motions and a lot of different stuff. So there's of course gonna be stuff I'm gonna miss. And one thing that I've missed that I used several times in the video is two things, which is counts and motion, this, and then just a period. So okay, I'll just go over this real quick. So count motion, pretty much in VIM you can repeat a certain motion several times if you just put a number before it. So let's say you're in normal mode. If I wanted to, let's say normally if I wanted to go into insert mode on the next line, I put O and I type out whatever I want, go back to normal mode, it's fine, right? Like this. If I, let's say, wanted to go into insert mode and type out text for the next, let's say, 50 lines, if I just type 50 and I use the O action, whatever I type here, when I go back into normal mode, when I get out of insert mode, you'll see that the motion of using O to go into insert mode and typing stuff out has been repeated 50 times. So you see it's typed out text for 50 lines. Just like how you can type out text 50 lines. This can be used with any motion. So let's say if I want to go up, you press K to go up. So let's say if I know this was 50 lines, I can go up 50 lines by saying 50, and then K. Here I go up 50 lines. So this can be useful in many situations, but it's just good to know that if you need to repeat a certain motion, or as we're gonna talk about later, macros, you repeat certain actions many times if you just put the number before it. So say 100, that's a bit too much. 20, what else? If I just go into insert mode, I type out something. When I go back into normal mode, you'll see something's been typed out 20 times, right? Something like that. So again, can be useful for many reasons. The count and then a motion. Okay, and then the next thing I want to talk about is just the dot or period or whatever, full stop or whatever you call it. Pretty much this motion will repeat the previous motion that you did. So let's say if I press DW, right, to delete a word, you can see here DW, I do this, and press a period, dot, and you'll see it repeats the previous motion I did, which is DW. So if I press here, right here, it will delete a word, this. And this can be used with any motion again. So let's say if I copy this, paste, go on that in a bit. If I copy this line and I paste and press period to do the same thing. So it just repeats the previous motion that you did. All right, so that is it. And we can move on to the actual stuff for this video. All right, so the first motions we're going to be going over are the Control D and Control U. So Control D and Control U will control your cursor and make it jump down half a page with Control D, and we'll jump up half a page with Control U. So this motion is very useful when you just have a file that is pretty long, you want to sort of jump through. If you don't know where the code you're looking for is exactly, if it's not exactly at the top or the bottom, it's a pretty large file. Control D and Control U are very useful to be able to jump through a file fairly quickly. Next motion is going to be Shift A and Shift I. So Shift A and Shift I, don't mind this. Shift A will just take wherever line you're on, and it will send your cursor to the end of the line in insert mode. So let's say, if I were writing some stuff here, if I were writing some text in the middle, if I jump into normal mode and press Shift A, you'll see my cursor jumps to the end and in insert mode. And just like how Shift A makes your cursor jump to the end of the line in insert mode, Shift I makes your cursor jump to the beginning of the line in insert mode. And this can be very useful. I especially use Shift A a lot when writing out code, and it's just a small motion that can make your text editing a bit faster. Okay, and the next motion, or I guess next small tip, I guess that I want to mention is exactly what I just did, which is VD, capital V, capital D. What this does, it just deletes a line. So I've talked about this in the first VIM motions guide, which is that Shift V will select an entire line, and D will delete whatever you have selected. So whenever you have need to delete a line, let's say, a very quick way you can do it, instead of I mentioned this as well in the first guide, instead of pressing DD to delete a line, which you can press two keys, the same key twice. Instead of doing that, going VD is much faster. So again, something minor, but can be, it's good to get in the habit of doing, just be a bit faster. And just like how you can use VD to delete a line very quickly, you can use VY, Shift VY, to copy a line very fast. So instead of deleting a line, you can copy the line. So that is VD and VY. All right, and the next motion I'll talk about is going to be Control A. So Control A will increase a number that you're currently highlighted on by 1. So let's say if I were on this line, say there's a 1. If I press Control A, say every time I press Control A, will go up by 1. If I have, it might be different depending on the config. I think the default behavior is to increase the first number, or the first number that I can find, by 1. If I am hovered on this number in the same line, we'll increase this number like this. And that is Control A. There's also Control X, which decreases the number by 1 each time. And that's Control A and Control X. And you can also use this, with multiple numbers. If you select multiple numbers like this, and increase each and period to repeat the motion. Now, there is also one thing you can do, which is, let's say, if you had a bunch of numbers like this, and you want to increase all of them, but let's say in increasing order. So let's say you want to increase like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so like that. You can do so with G and then Control A. So if I select all of these numbers, I press G, Control A, is that each one of them has been increased by 1, but 1 more than the previous one. So you see it counts up from 2 all the way to, what's this, like 51. So that's how G, Control A works. And the same thing can go for G, Control X. You see that before it was, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Increasing. If we press G, Control X, you see that all of them go back down to 1. If we just use, normal Control X, you see all of them is decrement by 1. G, Control X, all of them is decremented 1 more than the previous number. All right. And that brings us now to macros, which I did not talk much about in the last video. But macros are very useful in Vim, and depending on our circumstance, you need to use it. So to create a macro, first thing you need to do is press Q, and then any key that you want to bind it to. So let's say W. So now you'll see that it says recording at W, and now whatever type will be recorded into the macro. So let's say, actually let's make a better example. Like this, right? If I start with QW, so now it's recording the macro into the key W. If let's say I want my macro to go to the second word and delete it, so let's say press 0 to go to the start of the line, W once, and let's say delete word, and we go down 1. That's gonna be the macro. So now, if I wanted to use this macro, all I need to do is just press shift 2, which is the @ sign. So @ and then the key which we record the macro into, which is W. So when I go @W, it performs the macro. So we deleted the second word and we moved down a line. That's all the macro did. And that's why we get the macro working, right? Now you can also use this several times. So let's say if we wanted to perform this macro 6 times, you just use the count and it works 6 times. Let's say 7 times, do that as well. And that is it for macros. Again, macros, you just record, whatever keystrokes, and then it'll replay those keystrokes. So depending on whatever you need to do, like, when you're editing code, let's say you have to change one specific word several times, something like that, or you have to format certain tags, macros can be very useful if it's the same motion that's going to be applied to many lines. All right. Now, after this, we have search and replace. So search and replace is really a Vim motion, but it's built into Vim, right? So search and replace, one way you can do it is if you wanted to search the entire text, whatever file you're in, and search for something and replace it. You can start with colon to enter command mode, and then %s, and then /. And now you're in search and replace. So of course this uses regex for search, and also for replace. So let's, example of this, let's say we want to replace this, whatever this thing is that I typed up. As we want to replace every instance of this with something else. So let's replace this something else here. And that will replace every instance of whatever the first thing we put with the same thing we put after the second pair of forward slashes. But there is one thing to note, which is that since this is regex, regex only searches for the first instance of the text in a line. So let's just say in here, let's search and replace again anything with F. You see here how it searches for the letters A, S, F. Here it finds this ASF, but it doesn't replace this ASF here on, even though because there's two instances in the same line. So if we place something here, you see this ASF, even though it matches it, it won't replace the word. The way you do this, you actually replace it is you put another slash with a G on the end, and this will actually search for every instance, even multiple instances in the same line. So that's it. Another thing you can do with search and replace is capture groups. So in regex, you can have a capture group where you capture certain text. In Vim here, you can do the same thing. So let's say if I had a few variables, right? Let's use, you see, we use some of the potions before, but the increase, let's do the same thing here. All right. So then you see here, we have a few variables. You can actually, let's say global, let's search for, let's say int variable, well, not variable one, let's just say int, and we can put a name here. So we're searching here, if you haven't learned regex, we're searching just for int, and then here, we're just looking for any number of any character, and we're putting that, and we're capturing that within these brackets, and then a semicolon at the end. Now again, in Vim, slightly different because normal regex, or I guess, whatever, you'll usually do this where you just have the brackets on the outside here, and then dot meaning, or period meaning any character, the asterisk meaning 1 or 0 or more of that character, or any characters, right? In Vim, it's slightly different. You have to put backslashes on the, what's it called? Parentheses, because most of the time when you're searching, whatever, it's treated as a special character, so you gotta escape it. Okay. So now, let's say if we wanted to change the type of this variable to a string, put string and then \1, right? And that will give us whatever we captured, because this is the first capture group, right? So in our regex here, we captured the variable name because we want to search for int, which is the variable type, and then a semicolon at the end. So in here, all we're capturing is the variable name. So when we use \n here in our replace, the \n is just whatever is captured, first capture group, which is the name of the variable, which is why we get the variable name. And see, each one of these is going to be captured, and we can replace it with what was in the line here. So before we had these variables, now we have the variables here still for every line. And then one more thing to know about search and replace, obviously I'm probably missing a lot, is that you can search and replace just a specific range. So let's say if we had, let's undo a bit. So instead of searching the entire file and replacing stuff from the entire file, if you just select a few lines and then go into command mode with colon, and type s/, this will search and replace only the range that you've selected. So if I have, here, if I do the same thing except with only this part selected, you'll see that here we only replace, we only search and replace the lines that we have selected instead of the whole file. All right, that's it. I don't know how to end this off with.